Okay, we're diving into something pretty fascinating today. It's a real close-up look at how students actually experience physical activity at school. We're moving beyond those big, broad national stats for a bit and getting granular. We've got a Voice of Rangatahi survey here, specifically from Collingwood Area School, done back in 2021.
Yeah, and this wasn't just, a quick poll. It was the school really trying to properly understand how their students get active, both inside school and outside too. The whole point was to use that direct feedback to basically make their sports and activity offerings better.
Makes sense.
And it's key to remember this was their first time doing this kind of survey, this VAR survey. So they were really just setting a starting point, a baseline.
Right, establishing the ground floor. So who exactly took part? Was it a decent number of students?
Oh, yeah, pretty strong response. 65 students fill it out. That works out to about 78% of the whole school roll.
It was pretty good engagement. And it was a good mix.
Absolutely. It covered a good range. We had 43% identifying as female, 55% male, and a small group, 2%, preferred not to say. Ethnicity-wise, it was mainly European Pakaha, that was 95%, but also 14% identified as Maori and 3% as Asian.
Okay.
And crucially, they got input from right across the year levels, so year 7 all the way up to year 13. Years 8 and 9 were particularly responsive. And another notable thing, this was the first time they'd actually included year 7 and 8 students in this kind of feedback.
Ah, interesting. So younger voices included for the first time. Okay, so our mission, our goal for this deep dive then is to really unpack these findings, yeah. What does this survey tell us about what's going well with physical activity at Collingwood Area School? What are the sticking points maybe? And what opportunities does it point towards for making things even better for these students?
Exactly. We're essentially getting a student's eye view of the whole physical activity scene at the school.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Activity levels. How active are these students overall? Are they hitting those WHO guidelines, the 60 minutes a day target?
Well, here's the first interesting bit. The data suggests students at Collingwood might be slightly less active overall compared to the national and regional averages, specifically when you look at hitting that 60-minute mark consistently, like 6 or 7 days a week.
Hmm. So fewer are meeting that high frequency target.
Yeah, fewer reported being active that often. It does raise questions, Could it be just how they understand physical activity, maybe not counting walking or biking to school?
That's possible.
Or it could be other factors too, like maybe access to sports clubs nearby, or how easy it is to walk around their area, things future surveys might want to dig into.
Good point. Context is key, isn't it? Now, we often hear that activity tends to drop off as students get older, especially in secondary school.
Hmm.
Did this survey show that pattern?
Actually, no, which is quite interesting. That typical decline you see in older secondary students, it wasn't really strongly evident in this particular data set. Yeah. And what's more, even the students who weren't hitting that daily guideline, they still said they were active in school and outside of school. It really emphasizes, I think, the need for maybe clearer definitions in future surveys, just to be sure everyone's on the same page about what counts.
Fair enough.
And also worth noting, there wasn't a big difference between boys and girls in terms of who is active 6 or 7 days a week. Pretty similar rates there.
Okay, so maybe not hitting the top end of the daily average, but still generally engaged. So how are they being active then? What kind of activities are they choosing?
Right. Well, PE is huge. 89.2% said they take part in PE.
Wow, that's high.
It is. It's actually higher than the national average, which is around 80%. And like we mentioned, including those year 7 and 8 students, where PE is usually compulsory, that likely boosts that number quite a bit.
Ah, yeah, that makes total sense. The curriculum structure itself is driving that. What about outside of the official PE classes?
Well, slightly more students than average said they were active on their own. Not a massive difference, but a bit higher. But where there was a really significant jump was in organized sport at school. Things like regular competitions, leagues, tournaments run by the school.
Okay.
Yeah, here 38.5% were involved, compared to a national average of just 30%. That really points to quite a strong culture of organized school sport there.
That's definitely encouraging. And what about the other end? Any students saying they did nothing at all?
Amazingly, no. 0% of the students who responded said they'd done absolutely no physical activity during that school year,
Zero. Compared to what nationally?
compared to 14% nationally who report doing nothing. So that's a really positive finding for the school.
Absolutely. That's great news.
Yeah.
So when they hear active at school, what's popular? What are they actually doing?
The survey listed the top things. Cross country was number one, then general games, badminton, football, basketball, swimming, running, and also kiyaraki.
Okay. A decent mix there. Individual stuff, team stuff.
Yeah, good variety.
And what about after the bell rings? What do they do outside of school?
Outside school, it shifts a bit more towards individual activities. But what's interesting is that about 40% said they often do these activities with friends.
Yeah, the social side again.
Exactly. It highlights that social connection as a big part of why they choose to be active.
So it's not just about fitness for its own sake. Hanging out with mates is a key driver. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. How do these students actually feel about physical activity, their understanding, their attitudes?
Overall, their self-rating on physical literacy, sort of their competence and confidence, was pretty comparable to the national average. And on a really positive note, over 90% said they understand why being physically active is good for them.
That's huge.
It is. That's a really solid knowledge base to build on.
Definitely. Knowing the why is one thing, but feeling confident to actually try new things.
Yeah.
How did they rate on that?
Just under 60% said they felt confident trying different physical activities.
Okay, so majority, but still, 40% maybe aren't feeling that confidence. Room for growth there, perhaps.
Potentially, yeah. More broadly, though, most students, about 78%, said they want to participate in physical activities, and that figure is pretty similar to the national average.
So the desire is there for most. Did the survey get into how the school environment itself supports them? Like, do they feel encouraged by staff? Does it feel safe?
It did. And actually, students were more likely than the national average to agree that school staff encourage them and that the school provides a safe and inclusive environment for activity.
That's positive.
Definitely. But interestingly, linking back to that confidence point, they were slightly less likely to feel confident trying lots of different kinds of activities.
Ah, okay. So they feel safe and encouraged in general. Maybe in the activities they already know, but perhaps a bit less confident stepping outside that comfort zone.
That's one way to interpret it, yeah. It's a subtle but interesting nuance.
So how does all this add up? What was their overall satisfaction with their physical activity experience at school?
This is where things diverge a bit. Overall, students at Collingwood reported lower satisfaction levels compared to the national average.
Lower. How much lower?
Only 26% said they were very or extremely satisfied, whereas nationally that figure is 32%.
Okay, that's a noticeable difference, but I recall the report broke that down further, didn't it? It wasn't low across the board.
Exactly right. They were actually more satisfied with PE specifically, and their satisfaction with competitive sport was comparable to the national average.
Ah, okay.
So it seems like those core structured parts of what the school offers, PE and competitive sport, are generally viewed pretty positively. The dissatisfaction might be elsewhere.
Interesting. So who were the really satisfied students? And on the flip side, what was driving the dissatisfaction for others?
The most satisfied tended to be younger, year 7, 8, and 9 males mainly. And they specifically mention, having fun and the variety of activities within PE. For those who were less satisfied, a common theme was wanting more PE and sport opportunities. They felt there wasn't enough. And unfortunately, some students also brought up concerns about bullying happening during sports.
Oh, okay. That's obviously a serious point that needs addressing.
Yeah.
Right, let's dig into the barriers then. What did students say was stopping them from being more active?
The top 2 overall barriers were, 1, too busy. That's a classic.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
And the second one, quite significantly, was, I don't like other people seeing me being physically active.
Ah, the self-consciousness factor.
Exactly. And the survey noted this was more common among female students. It really points to potential anxieties maybe around body image or performance for some girls.
That's a really crucial insight. Okay, so those are the overall barriers. What about specifically wanting to do more at school? What stopped them then?
For wanting more activity in school, too busy came up again, but it was sort of equally ranked with a few other things.
Like what?
Like, I don't have the equipment I need, too hard to motivate myself, and even my parents want me to focus on schoolwork.
Wow, okay. So a mix of practical things, motivation, and even parental pressure.
Yeah, a complex picture for in-school activity barriers.
And what about barriers to being more active outside of school?
There, the main things were too hard to motivate myself and just being too tired.
Fair enough. Makes sense that motivation and fatigue would be bigger factors outside the structured school day.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what about the students who said they didn't want to be more active? What were their reasons?
Mostly, that group felt they were already doing enough, or they just preferred doing other things, which is understandable. But there was a concerning element. Some students, and again, more females than males in this group, said they didn't want to do more because they didn't feel fit enough.
Ooh, that feels like a negative cycle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Feeling unfit stops you from doing the very thing that could help you feel fitter.
Precisely. It's the opposite of what you'd hope for. Activity should feel accessible, not like something you need to be fit enough for already.
Absolutely. Okay, so the survey didn't just identify problems, it asked students for solutions, right? What did they want the school to improve?
Yes, and two areas really stood out clearly. Number one, mentioned by 23% of students, was the cleanliness and maintenance of the facilities,
Facilities. Like,
specifically changing rooms and toilets. This was also the area they were most dissatisfied with. Some students used really strong words like disgusting. They talked about not having proper changing spaces, long queues.
right. Basic stuff, but really important.
Hugely important. And this was a particularly strong theme coming from girls in years 8 through 11. It sounds like a very real, practical issue impacting their experience.
Definitely sounds like a priority. What was the second main area for improvement?
The second one, mentioned by 22%, was the range of activities on offer.
Wanting more choice.
Exactly. They felt like they were often playing the same games and wanted more variety. They specifically asked for things like volleyball, rugby, both girls and boys teams mention hockey, cricket, softball, kyorahi, even boxing, badminton, and swimming.
Big wish list.
Yeah. Basically wanting more team sports options and more things happening outside of normal school hours, too. And tied into this was the quality of the actual spaces that also came up as needing improvement.
Okay, so better facilities and a wider, more diverse range of things to do in them. Got it. On the flip side, what were they happy about? What were the most satisfying aspects?
They highlighted three main positives. The quality of the coaches and instructors, that the activities provided were generally fun, and the overall atmosphere being friendly and welcoming.
Okay, so those are definite strengths the school can leverage. Good coaches, fun, welcoming vibe.
Definitely.
And did they suggest any specific new activities, things the school doesn't offer at all right now?
They did. Building on that variety point, some specific requests popped up, like more skill-based games, softball, and kyorahi came up again. Also, boxing, volleyball again, swimming, even Olympic wrestling was mentioned. And one female student specifically put in a request for rugby.
So definitely an appetite to try new things. Sounds like clear signals for potential new programs. What about existing school teams? Any feedback on improving those?
Yeah, a bit. Some students involved in teams wanted their teammates to take things a bit more seriously, be more committed. And for netball specifically, there were practical requests like better fitting uniforms, needing more players for the teams, and wanting more diversity within the teams.
Okay, actionable feedback for sure. Things that could make the team experience better. Now, thinking about the modern world, technology, did the survey touch on how tech fits into their physical activity?
It seems like tech use was pretty limited at that point. When it was used, it was mostly for basic stuff like timing, using a stopwatch, or maybe phone apps for HIIT workouts.
Right.
Occasionally for planning things. One student joked about video games being a sport, but yeah. Generally minimal integration.
So not much use currently.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's potential there, maybe using fitness trackers or apps in PE could be something to explore down the line.
Potentially, yeah. The survey didn't really ask about future openness to tech, but it's an interesting thought for next time, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Nearly there. The survey also touched on volunteering and overall well-being. What did it find?
Just a small percentage expressed interest in volunteering in sport, maybe coaching, helping staff, or community roles. So some interest, but not widespread. And regarding well-being, their self-rated happiness levels were pretty much on par with regional and national averages.
Okay.
But the report did point out an interesting correlation. Students who reported higher levels of happiness also tended to report doing more hours of physical activity per week.
So reinforcing that link between moving more and feeling good. A nice little positive feedback loop, potentially. Okay, so we've really dug deep into the survey now.
Yeah.
Pulling it all together, what are the big takeaways from this snapshot of Collingwood Area School?
I think it gives us a really valuable, nuanced picture. On the one hand, you've got students who generally like the fun and social side of activity. They appreciate their coaches, which is great. But there are clear areas needing work, those facilities, cleanliness, maintenance, that's a big one. And the desire for a much wider variety of activities is loud and clear.
Yeah.
Lots of students want to be more active in and out of school, but things like being too busy or feeling self-conscious, especially for girls, are real barriers that need tackling. It really just hammers home how important it is to actually listen to students when you're planning this stuff.
Absolutely.
The focus really needs to be on fun, social opportunities, offering genuine choice, maybe even getting students involved in leading things themselves.
And it sounds like the school is planning to keep listening,
Oh.
which is good.
Yes, the report specifically recommended they do a follow-up survey. Make some changes based on this feedback, and then check back in to see if those changes actually made a difference.
A good cycle of feedback and action.
Exactly. It's the best way to make sure they're really meeting student needs.
So as we wrap this up, it definitely leaves you thinking, doesn't it? How do these findings connect with your own memories of school sport, or maybe how you think about encouraging activity now? What are those small things, maybe like improving changing rooms or just offering one different sport, that could actually unlock a more positive environment for everyone to get moving? This survey from Collingwood gives us a really specific look, but the themes, well, they offer food for thought for anyone interested in fostering that lifelong love of being active.